Disney's Moana, Chapter 8. Pinks and reds and oranges swept over the horizon like someone had dipped a paintbrush in flowers and was drawing it along, with the clouds as their canvas, in the most beautiful sunrise Moana had ever seen. Taking a deep breath, she rehearsed what she planned to say when she found Maui. "I am Moana of Motunui. You will board my boat, sail across the sea, and restore the heart of Te Fiti." That sounded pretty good already, but practice made perfect. "I am Moana," she trailed off, as she heard an odd noise. Thunk. Moana glanced around, but she didn't see anything. Of Thunk. Nui. That sound had definitely come from within the boat. Thunk. Leaning forward, Moana peered past the boat's drum and into the cargo hold, where she'd stowed all her supplies. As she watched, one of the coconuts rose out of the pile. "Magawk!" The coconut squawked. "Hey, hey!" Moana said, reaching out toward the coconut. The rooster must have been sleeping in the canoe the whole night, hidden among the coconuts. But how had the village's most lovable pest found his way to the cavern in the first place? As she lifted the coconut shell off his head, the rooster blinked up at her. His head swung to the side, perhaps searching for food, but he discovered only vast, open ocean waves, no land or trees in sight. "Bah!" Hey shrieked, his feathers springing forward in shock. Quickly, Moana plopped the coconut shell back over his head, and the rooster immediately calmed. She gave him a moment to collect himself, then pulled the shell back off. "Bah!" Hey screamed again. Down went the shell over his eyes, and he quieted. Moana waited a beat again and then tentatively removed the coconut. This time, the rooster merely gazed impassively around. Unperturbed, he pecked at the coconuts around him, plucking up a few fibers. Moana rolled her eyes. Silly rooster, she thought. But it was a good sign that she'd acclimated to the sight of the ocean, since it looked like they'd be on it together for a long time. "There we go. Yeah, nice water," she told him, scooping out of the cargo hold and setting him next to her. "The ocean's actually a friend of mine." Cocking his head, Hey regarded her, then the water. With a little neck bob, he stood up and walked right over the edge of the boat. "Hey!" Moana shouted as the rooster splashed down into the sea and began flailing. "Arr!" she cried, just before diving in to rescue the panicking chicken, whose wings were fast getting waterlogged. Of course, that didn't stop Hey from flapping them in her face, the wet feathers smacking against her cheeks and blocking her view. Finally, tucking him into a ball with two hands, Moana lifted him up over her head and turned, only to realize that her canoe had drifted away. Sighing, she tucked Hey under one arm and kicked toward the boat. Reaching the hull, Moana half heaved herself up and dumped Hey over the side. He slipped out of her hand and landed at the bottom of the boat with a thunk. "Bah!" he protested. Moana slid over the side after him and was just getting her legs under her when Hey strutted towards the edge of the boat. Lunging, Moana caught him and plopped him into the cargo hold. "Stay," she told him firmly. Hay's head jerked up, and he walked smack into one of the walls, then turned and bonked into the other one. "Or that," Moana said. Grabbing hold of the oar, she lowered it into the water. "Okay, Next stop, Maui. Moana hoisted up the sail, but a huge gust of wind pushed against it, dragging the boat backward. Oops, Moana said, quickly tacking to the left so the wind would push her in the right direction. Instead, the boat spun around, facing the way she'd come. For a brief, wistful moment, Moana wondered how much easier it would be if her father had taught her how to sail. But she wasn't one to dwell on what-ifs. Taking some deep breaths, Moana fiddled with the lines. Oh, okay, she thought. That's the way to do it. Several hours later, her arms were starting to tire, and she was eyeing her supplies. After a quick break for a banana and some coconut water, she settled back into her seat. I am Moana of Motunui, she rehearsed. You will board my boat, sail across the sea, and restore the heart of Te Fiti. Moana would have to listen to her. As the sun set, a pod of dolphins leapt out of the water, then sped away toward the horizon. Where were they headed so quickly? She wished they'd stuck around to keep her company. Hei was turning out to be more of a nuisance than anything else. With night came strong winds, and Moana needed all her strength to keep the boat on track as the sail whipped in the gusts. She stole glances at the sky, keeping Maui's constellation in sight, trying to direct the boat toward it. I am Moana of Motunui, she recited to herself, the words bolstering her confidence. You will board my boat, sail across the sea, and restore the heart of Te Fiti. Finally, the winds rested and a calm fell. Moana breathed a sigh of relief, slumping lower in the bottom of the canoe. That had been rough. Weariness overtook her, and her eyes drifted closed. Splash! Seawater smacked over the hull and into her face. With a sputter, Moana sat up. How long had she been asleep? Rubbing her eyes, she looked up at the twinkling stars. Where was Maui's fishhook? How had she lost it? Frantic, she twisted all around, scanning the sky. There! It was behind her! Growing in frustration, Moana heaved on the lines, swinging the boom to turn around. Unfortunately, just at that moment, a blast of wind shoved against the sail, and the boat began to tip precariously. No, no, no! Moana cried, scrambling to fix it. Too late. With an enormous crash, the boat capsized, spilling Moana, her oar, the bags, and Hei into the sea. Moana churned underwater, then swam up toward the hull, throwing one arm over it. Gasping, she looked around to see everything from her boat drifting in different directions. Ocean, could I please get a little help? She asked hopefully. If the ocean had entrusted her with the heart of Te Fiti, surely it didn't want her to end up stranded without her supplies. All around her, the undulating waves sloshed in their same rhythm, ignoring her plea. Okay then, Moana thought, I can do this. First she retrieved Hei, dumping him unceremoniously on the overturned hull. Then she dove after her oar, which was drifting away. But by the time she turned her focus to the rest, her supplies were all scattered. Moana struggled after them through the rolling waves. Were the crests getting bigger, or was that just her imagination? Boom! A rumble of thunder crackled across the sky. Looking up, Moana saw dark clouds blocking out the stars. Oh no, really? Where had that storm come from? She floundered in the sea, but her supplies were being pulled away from her too quickly. It was no use. She had to abandon them. Drawing on her reserves of energy, Moana swam back to her boat and tried to lift it. Come on, she muttered. If she didn't get the boat back up right now, she'd have no chance once the storm was fully upon her. But no matter how she shoved, she couldn't leverage the boat back up. Help me! Help, please! She implored the water around her. But whatever magic sometimes curled through the waves to give her a hand didn't respond. There was nothing for it but to try and ride out the storm. Moana clung to the hull as gale-force winds blew and the sea rose higher and higher to meet them. Digging her fingers into the wood, Moana squinted her eyes shut and called out to her ancestors as an enormous wave lifted the boat up, 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 and it crashed back down. The next swell was right behind it, slamming her and the canoe with such force that a plank of wood knocked Moana out. So much for the ocean being my friend, Moana thought, as blackness closed over her.